take a humorous look at the wide world of contradictions and double standards and crazy things that somehow exist, but we don't think that they necessarily should exist. To help out today. And we've had, on this series, we've tried to bring some very serious, more business and IT focused topics to help out as many people as we can. And we thought this would be a good time just to sit back and have some fun. And when I thought about that, there were just two amazing people that I know from the conference circuit that I had to make a part of this show. You're going to see them again where they can better represent their areas of expertise, but we're going to have some fun with it. So I'd like to first introduce AJ because he's at the top of the screen. AJ, you want to introduce?
Yeah, I said Vince, but I saw that's crazy. Hey, Hans, thanks for having me. I was on Vince's show a moment ago, so I'm going to attribute that to the happy hour version of Vince's show. So my name is AJ Hawley. I am an independent consultant for Dynamics CRM, the Power Platform, but today I'm just a happy guest on your show.
Absolutely. And as Steve Jones asks, he's watching from our Facebook feed. So there's going to be some valuable lessons and some great information, but no, this isn't going to be a super serious topic. We're going to kick back and have some fun looking at double standards, contradictions, whether they're in the workplace, whether they're at home. Still some valuable lessons, but not as serious as our governance or security or some of the other talks we've had here. Mr. Vince, who just got off his exciting podcast show, whatever they're called when it's video. I still need to figure that out.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
After work.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Vince, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hans. I mean, how could I not be here when you asked me to be here? Like, you anything for you, my friend. You are a king amongst men. And I mean, yeah, Steve's already alluded to it. It's not going to be serious, but I also find that there's always, if you look through the funny, you find the serious, and vice versa. So yeah, I'm. Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to do my proper introduction. I'm Vince. I like long walks on the beach, and no, I'm Vince. I'm like AJ. I'm also a independent trainer and teacher and consultant and coach, and in the continuous improvement sort of process BA, strategic BA space. And more to the point, I got to meet these lovely two gentlemen through our shared travels, just speaking on the same circuit. So doing a lot of speaking and nowhere I'd rather be than right here.
Absolutely. And the wonderful woman who you saw on this show before with Leslie Hughes that actually hosts the conferences that all of us met through, and probably one of the most natural and dynamic networkers and friends for life introducer, Amy Riddell, has joined in and is watching. So all hail to Amy as well. She was also on Vince's show early, so glad to have her here.
Yeah.
So with as serious as some of these have been, why this? And I would say this show was actually inspired when I had a break between meetings. And for people who know me, I am severely addicted to soda. And I go through many 2-liter bottles each day. It is sugar-free. I've limited and I'm down to only 20% caffeine during the day, which is remarkable. And when I was refilling one of my drinks, one of my personal pet peeves and things that just baffles me in the universe is the whole cup fills with foam and it takes forever for the foam to come down and then it's barely full. But if I fill it too fast and the foam spills, it's more than ever made it into the cup. And I don't know how the foam can produce more liquid outside of a cup than inside. And I was like, you know what? Our lives, especially at work and personally, are filled with so many of these things that just don't seem to make sense. Like conservation of mass is a law of physics, but it doesn't seem to apply to soda. And so I reached out to my friends here and said, why don't we just come up with some of our odd observations, odd things that happen, and see where it goes. And I'd say, it applies to soda. I've also noticed it applies to beer. Anything I don't want to spill, it seems to apply to. Have you all seen that or something similar before we jump to some more exciting ones?
Champagne, obviously, champagne.
Yep.
Same thing, right? So how does it turn into the champagne, from the bubbles? It's magic.
It is, and the volume just doesn't make sense to me. Well, AJ, you hit on an important one that I loved, and it actually popped up a little bit on the Sunday Business Show that I do with Michael Bathurst, which is just a casual, tries to be business talk, but we often get way off the rails. And that was Instagram influencers, or influencers in general. So let's start off with that one, because when we've talked a lot about social media and branding, and you hit one that just made me smile.
Yeah, I think we should just call them what they are: human commercials, right? That's fine. And I think that we've gone overboard on I need to have every moment of my life articulated into this is the best, you have to buy this product, etc. Look at me here, and just look at the actual products themselves and say, well, this is a great thing. So I think that influencers in general do the opposite, and it's more hype than it is actual content. So if someone gives me an actual review of a piece of product, like a product, now I will completely admit this, I do zero reviews of anything personally. I will watch, and I have, in fact, for these headsets that I have now, I probably spent 5 hours watching different reviews of headsets, headphones. What's the mic quality sound like? What does the ear quality sound like? Whatever. So I will watch other people's stuff, but if you actually give me a legitimate review that this is a technical thing, but they don't need to be 10 minutes. Give me like a 4-minute review. So
yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. Like, if I buy a product and then I get at, hey, you bought this thing, will you give us a review? No, I don't do any of that.
Right.
And like, screw that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. So then, if you pay me a little bit, I might do it, but it's still probably not. Right. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not a audiophile, perhaps, or per se. I'm really not. I like high quality audio things, but I'm not going to be the person that's going to rate it, review it, and have a collection of things that I'm going to analyze from one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would call them commercials, for a couple of reasons, but I mean, I think they're people that have an audience and are leveraging that audience, and so that to me is the more sinister thing. Is like, I'm only drawing people to care about me because of what I can get from them, and that seems sort of insidious. But on the flip, like, I've often said, I wish I could hire someone to just like follow me around and record me, because every once in a while I say something pretty smart, and it's like, I wish I had written that down. So like, I wouldn't say I'm an influencer, but I wish I had the resources to let someone follow me for that one brief shining moment where I say something brilliant once a month or so.
I have a lot of trouble with people that advertise or market themselves that their brand is a social influencer.
Yeah.
So to AJ's point, you're a professional sellout. You somehow created enough of a shtick that you got followers. So now companies are pushing their products through you. Are you really sharing products you love, or are you just a corporate shill? And I think a lot of them have just sold their souls. And I'm sure that there is some level of Dante's Inferno where they are having to read nothing but bad tweets and reviews about themselves for the rest of eternity.
I believe that's the 11th level, right below. I think it's down below in the 11th canto,
right below people who drive on the wrong side of the road.
Not including the British who do it intentionally. Yes. Yes.
I
Excellent.
was gonna say, there's the inverse of that too, Hans, where you have to listen to that, right? So like, you've done something and then now you have to listen to influencers all day long, read whatever. So there's both sides of that.
Dina brought one that is right up our alleys. Stakeholders, especially in IT. So stakeholders at one point meant someone who was impartial. And now Dina was saying they are someone who has interest or influence. So let's talk a little bit about what do stakeholders mean in today, and then I'll come back, because not all stakeholders or people with that title are created equal in our lives.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, they are a person who has an interest or an influence in the output or outcome, and but that then means that there is a bias inherent in their perspective. And so, are they stakeholders or are they influencers within your organization? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a weird. I've never thought. You guys are bringing much more thunder than I'm. Dina should be on this show right now, not me.
Well, Dina's watching from Facebook, so we can't bring her up. But
Okay.
AJ, what's your thought on stakeholders?
I think that they have a depth of knowledge that I will never have, and in a particular area, right? So then it's my job to grab that knowledge and then use it to the betterment of the project versus allowing them to pull their weight and then get exactly what they want from whatever scenario. So it's like, yeah, your job here is to give me the information that I need. That if you give me more than that, it's my job again to weed that out. So I see myself as like a colander, right?
Yeah.
I'm a strainer, just trying to weed out the good stuff from the bad,
from the crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
yeah, it's a good. I like that analogy. Actually, that's a good way of putting it. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm a human strainer. Yes.
You're a human. You're a human strainer.
A human strainer for hire. I see it on your new business cards.
That's awesome.
Imagine the logo. You could be like the flying spaghetti monster, only just a different variation of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think in the old days, our stakeholders were one of two groups. They were subject matter experts who we should listen to, or they were sponsors that really could shut us down and make our lives miserable. When I joined Infotech Research Group, an IT research and advisory firm, they have some of the best stakeholder management exercises that I've seen. And one of the best parts was not treating all stakeholders equally. So imagine a 2x2 grid that is from low influence to high influence. So low influence means they're yapping their mouths, but we don't really listen to them, don't have to listen to them. Or high influence, we either have to or should listen to them. And then on the other axis is impact or interest. How much is their success vested in ours? So a sponsor has a very high interest. So if you get a high influence, high impact, you actually have someone that's a player. Those are your most important stakeholders. The opposite of that, who has low interest and low influence, is a noisemaker. So all they're doing is yapping. They can't really do anything. You just feed them information and keep them tied up so that they don't distract anybody and keep them out of the way. And I really like that because it helped. There's, of course, two other quadrants: mediators who have influence but not interest, and then people who have interest but maybe not influence, like it's not the sponsor but the sponsor's boss that has interest in the project, but how much are they actually going to weigh in on day to day? And I really enjoyed that. So yeah, how we're dealing with stakeholders could definitely upset our apple cart.
Are you equating interest then to knowledge?
Not knowledge, but actually the success of what you're doing is aligned to how that person their success is measured. So they are actually, how much are they vested in your project or product success?
I see.
Yep. So what I deliver, I have a high interest. Whoever is asking me to do it also has a high interest. And anyone who is waiting for what we're delivering has a high interest, because if we don't succeed, they don't succeed.
Okay. I mean, I could see that as a Venn diagram. where knowledge has to be a part of that, where I
Yes.
might have somebody that is high, like they have high interest, they have high influence, and zero knowledge, right? And so that person is, we'll call them the hype monster, right? Where their job is to go in and champion this, where that's where they would be great at talking to executives, getting people into the project. But then you might have somebody that's low influence that has super high knowledge of the product because they do, whatever they do day to day in that specific area. And so then that would be a person that I would want to go after and glean as much as I could from that person.
Yep, absolutely.
And then let me add another wrinkle to this, because the other thing that I do when I do that 2x2 is I add a third dimension and look at it from am I a high impact, high influence, negative stakeholder? Like I perceive it negatively, because then I have to be engaged differently than someone that is supportive of the project or whatever I'm doing. So like to say they're players and treat them equal is only part of the story, because
Yes.
I could be a player who hates you, or I could be a player that is going to be a sub champion, I guess. And they need to be, you can then play them off each other. So you need to know, where do they truly stand as it relates to what it is that you're trying to get done.
And that is the sign of a master player, a master teacher who already figured out what the next exercise in the stakeholder management would be, is then, depending on what their influence and interest is, what category, do they love us or hate us? Because how we treat them definitely comes into play. So
Right.
you already picked, yep, that's the next exercise in that series.
Sorry, man.
No, it's great. No, that's perfect.
I've been teaching that for a while, though. I thought it was something that I created, but I guess I learned it through osmosis.
No, you can have brilliant minds can create the similar things in parallel.
I know. I'm not too worried about it, but Infotech has way more money than I do, so
So you think? Maybe, we don't know. You could be in one room of a 1,000-room mansion in Toronto. How would we know?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I could be. I'm not.
I've never seen him in any other room.
Because this is my home office.
Yeah, can you blink twice if you're safe?
Well, then again, we've never seen him move far from the desk either, so we don't know if he is physically chained to the desk as part of this company's work from home policy.
That's true.
Now we're going to see. He's going to try and go how long he can.
I tried.
All right, AJ, you brought up another one that made me laugh, because this has come up twice this week, let alone. And if we're talking about the most powerful databases, the best AI systems to process the most amount of information, the number one tool we use when we have to crunch insane amounts of information and come up with really good insights quickly, what do we turn to? Microsoft Excel.
Is there anything better?
Yes, Vince. There's so many things, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I saw it was just a softball that was right there, and then you're trying to toss to me. But I appreciate that. But I'm actually doing a talk with Chris Huntingford, who is a huge person in this space, in the dynamic space, on Monday about this exact topic. Right. So we're teaching people that are brand new to this particular industry, how to use data, where to save data, where to take it, and so on. And Excel is probably the most versatile tool in your toolbox, because you can do literally anything in it. The question is, should I? Like, I've watched people do mock-ups in Excel. I've seen visual mock-ups of UI, right? I've seen reports. I've seen all this. So it's like this one house that just collects everything. But it's not a database. It should have no more than 5,000 records, and you can't convince me that it shouldn't. The other options are a plethora of other things, but Excel should be there to look at data, be able to manipulate something very quickly on a personal level. As a corporate level, there should be higher end things that you would use to do that. So it's a huge, that's one of the things that I see, like, oh, look, I did this in Excel. And I'm like, ouch. We can't do anything with that data, but good job.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's been amazing to see how many groups, and we were helping a team try and troubleshoot something, and they weren't getting the results they were expecting. And then we looked at how many records they had, and it was like, all the records didn't look like Excel can't even handle this. Like, no, you can't do it that way.
Yeah, I've actually seen where companies have used this with 30 and 40,000 records in one sheet, and they use that as a way to do reporting, etc. And Steve Jones is accurate, so accurate in that statement. But yeah, so I've seen that, and it's like, what you need here is a database, because now you can actually relate these items to other items, and this would allow you to get a better reporting, but then also you would be able to look at your data and parse through it in a normalized way.
Absolutely. And this is, I think, where we fall into the contradiction that the tool that costs the least is the best purchase. And how many times have we seen an organization buy the best tool or the worst tool because they said, okay, the cheapest tool, we're saving money, but then we're killing productivity, or we buy the very best on the market paying top dollar, and now it's too complicated for our teams to use, to maintain, to find consultants to help us. The whole thing runs afoul.
Perfect example of that is I've wanted to redo my pantry at the house, and I bought one of those, the chop saw, right? So I spent quite a bit of money on that to do that. And really, I could have done it with a circular saw and then just been just fine. But I had to go this way, and now with the amount of time that I have, I think I'm going to hire out to do that. And so it's one of those things that it's like, I could spend a whole weekend just completely doing the pantry myself and making it nice, whatever. Or I could spend a little bit of money and having somebody else come in and do it very quickly, and I can go about myself, my other jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Know when to bring someone in. I just had to do that where I got in trouble with the HOA, who after a year respite decided, we're going to be a little tighter on things. And I was like, all right, my power washer's in the shop. I can't clean off my front steps and the door. I've got a buddy who does contracting, who's really good at this. He's just going to take care of it. And it was done in an hour the next day. Perfect. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't get wet. It was worth doing that way.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so Vince had to drop, which leads into one of the next contradictions or double standards I wanted to bring up. And this is actually one that I play into in a keynote that I do on becoming the best version of you. And that is that the double standards at home. And there's a line from Atlas Shrugged that says contradictions can't exist. If you think you found a contradiction, check your premises, because one of them is probably wrong. And that rule applies to double standards. And being a very, I guess, polarized person, I think the rule should apply to people equally, or it should be clear when they apply. And so for years, I really struggled with things that I was expected to do, but my wife wasn't necessarily doing the same way. And I thought this was a double standard until I finally realized that it's not a double standard. It's two different sets of rules. If my stuff is sitting out, it is junk and clutter because it has no value to her and she hates it. If her stuff is sitting out, it has a reason and a purpose and a value. Therefore, it's where it should be, which is out and available to her. And once I did the root cause analysis in our BA language and got to the source that it was how you defined value and when the business rules applied, I realized I was being ridiculous, that my stuff needed to be put away, hers didn't, and that is how the house will run. And I've been a lot happier since then.
And this is probably where we differ. I would have fought that battle and said, here is exactly what's happening. And it may or may not have gone over well. We'll be the judge of that in years to come. But when you started quoting the Atlas Shrugged comment, I immediately went to Star Wars just because I'm a nerd. And you hear Obi-Wan say, only a Sith deals in absolutes. And to me, that is like, well, hold on a second. You just gave me an absolute. What are you saying? This is a complete contradiction of what you just said, right? So it's the same premise, I think.
Yes.
So the rules that I think that you're talking about is accurate. But if you explained it, said, I need to have this stuff here because of X, Y, Z, has communication differed a little bit there where you're able to explain that this is here for a purpose because I use this and it makes more sense to leave it here unless company's coming over or something like that?
Absolutely. And I think this is where, the dynamic and the family balance comes in. Vaughn apparently is very much on your side that you fight that's a battle you win. It's not one that once I understood and wasn't mad about the double standard, then it wasn't something that I cared about. It wasn't that big a deal. It gets me every once in a while. And there are things like if I'm in the middle of putting something out because I'm working on it and it gets put away or moved, then that one is open warfare. But, other than that, that's one that I can, at least for me, I can let slide.
Yeah, I think that the interpersonal relationships that you can, it's not about the issue, it's about the communication, right? So and that's true in personal relationships as it is in business. So I've done things where I've screwed up at work, and because I had a great relationship with the person that I'm either talking to, my boss or boss's boss or whatever, I can say, here's what I did. I'm going to fix this. This is how I'm going to fix it. I'll have it fixed by tomorrow or by next week or whatever. And because I was able to do that in a way that diffused the situation, so you can deal with, I don't want to say hypocrisy, but you can deal with double standards in a way that's like, all right, yeah, so these are the rules are shifting. I'm going to deal with these rules this way. So it's interpersonal communication, I think, more so than it is about sticking to the rule sets themselves.
Yeah. And, this is a pseudo business show, even though we're pulling up some a little more ridiculous stuff, a little more serious than I actually thought it would turn out to be, but that's okay too.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'll continue drinking and then we'll do that. We'll just nosedive into insanity.
Yep. Well, and it ties back to the lesson that if you don't understand how the other person is defining value, how can you satisfy it? And that's really the root of where these things come from, is whether it's a spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's a relationship. I'll leave the person anonymously, but there's a legacy story in our family, and that every night for dinner, there was shrimp cooked, and one person always ate all the shrimp. And this turned into a kind of a festering annoyance for years, that, going to all the trouble to make this really good shrimp. And then this one person just kept eating all of it. And in their mind, they saw that every night the shrimp was one of their favorites and they appreciated it being made, but nobody else was eating it. And they felt bad and didn't want it to go to waste. So would continue to eat it throughout the meal. Well, everyone else was waiting until that person was done eating it before they had some because they knew it was their favorite. So both groups were trying to make the other group happy and accidentally were making each other mad, simply by not understanding the premise of what the value was and why they were taking certain actions.
Sure. So wait, hold on. Was that an actual story in your family, or was that?
Yes, it is. That is a real...
I'm just now confused. So you had shrimp every night?
No, I didn't, but a
Sorry.
family member, that is the version of the story for this period. Once the person who was cooking found out that the other loved shrimp, started making shrimp every night. A small portion of shrimp as part of whatever the meal was.
I'm just more, yeah. So like the dedication to making that other person happy, like that's fantastic on that front. That's
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. So I mean, I could tell you that I like calzones, but I don't want calzones every day. On the flip side, if you did wrap any of my food in a burrito, I will eat that 100%. So,
Absolutely. I had Taco Bell for lunch, and no matter how much people make fun of it, it's good food. It's, depending on what you pick, one of the healthiest options, and they are actually one of the top innovators in the restaurant space. We'll save that for another day, but we could talk for an entire hour.
Two of the three things you just said are accurate. They are the top innovators of their space. That's two truths. Well, actually, two lies and a truth is how we play that game.
Hey,
the food is not good unless it's after like 2:30. It's like the inverse of Gremlins. Like you can only eat it after 2:30. Definitely, don't get it wet. That's still a rule. And then, yeah, that's. I'm not going to bash Taco Bell though. I don't know who's going to see this.
It's okay. If they come on the show, we'll bring them up and they can address it. And as Vaughn says, part of the fun here is, and actually as we were kind of talking through and seeing if this show was going to be even viable, I was like, it's kind of like Alanis Morsette's song Ironic, where nothing is actually ironic by real definition. It's just all unfortunate or bad luck or bad timing or bad coincidence. And I was like, yeah, we're going much more along that line of irony than true irony. When I'm afraid of flying, I decide to drive and a plane crashes on me. That would be irony.
That would be Yes.
So, AJ, you had some wonderful other ideas. Let's pass it over to you for the next topic you want to throw in there.
Well, I think you had positioned this as give me crazy things that shouldn't exist. And I went down that rabbit hole. And so two things hit me immediately. One, French bulldogs. They literally shouldn't exist because in nature they wouldn't and they can't. So that's a thing. The other one, though, is...
About that, before we move on, tell me more about that, because I actually didn't realize that French bulldogs cannot actually breed.
Yeah, they can't reproduce. So it's because their bodies are too long for their bits. I don't know what kind of show this is, but we'll say bits. Yeah. And so, you can't get them to do the thing. So they have to be artificially inseminated. So every French bulldog you see is science.
Ah, okay. I'm with you now. I was trying to figure out why that was the case. Like seedless watermelons. You plant a seedless watermelon, a watermelon's not going to sprout up, but how do you create seedless watermelons? Things like that. But that makes sense. So they actually they need a trained veterinarian to actually help them. I guess it could be a veteran. You could have a veteran veterinarian. Why not? That is really crazy. Okay, thank you. I learned something.
Hey, sometimes I have a few gems that I'll sprinkle out for things like that. Useless knowledge. The other one is movie theater food. All right, so I'm going to go down a completely separate left field topic and talk about misophonia. I don't know if you know that term or heard of it. So misophonia is where you are hypersensitive to sound and you hear certain things and it triggers like a fight or flight response in your brain. So like you actually hear sounds, physiologically hear sounds differently. So that's me 100%. So it sounds like you would hear like guttural sounds like a crying baby. That is how I process other sounds, right? So in that vein, when I go to the movie theater and I hear someone like just chomping down on nachos or popcorn, I'm like, why is the loudest food available, the food that you have to eat in the quietest setting possible, right? Why couldn't it be just cotton candy and marshmallows? I feel like that would be a legitimate thing, right? And then to the point where I've actually stopped going to the normal theater. And my wife and I would go to, well, when you could go to movies, we would go to this one little theater that had pre-dinner service. And so you would eat all of your food before that, like during the previews, it would stop service. And if you wanted to have a drink or whatever, you could, you could leave and come get one, whatever. But you could have full dinner before the movie. No one's rustling popcorn in a box. No one's like shoving it in their face. The movie tickets are a little bit pricey, but that's my whole jam. Like, yes, I can sit down, I can have a beer or whatever if I want to, and just watch a movie and relax. It's like being at home.
And that was one of those when you shared that, immediately I was like, why has that never occurred to me so vividly? Like it's true. And you think back to all the movies that were ruined because you hear someone opening a bag or even opening a box, or the crunching and the noise and the movement, it takes you out of that escape from reality. Yeah. So why wouldn't you cater to quieter food in an area where people are trying to pay attention to something?
Yeah, I don't care if they're eating Philly cheesesteaks. Like that's going to be a super quiet food, and no. The boxes and now all the boxes are covered in cellophane, so you get like the box noise plus the cellophane, and people are rustling that like throughout the whole thing. And I just went to cereal punch people, but that's my own jam. So that's my
Absolutely. Sorry that you suffer more than the rest of us, but now once we get to go back to the theaters, I promise everyone else is going to sit there and say, now I can't help but concentrate on all the other noises after AJ shared that, and I'll be one of them.
Maybe. So either you get that response where you get the empathetic response, or for my brother-in-law, like when I'll go to my in-laws' house for dinner, and they have tea at the end of dinner every time that we go there, and he knows that the stirring of the tea in the glass, like the ringing of the glass and the spoon, it drives me crazy. And so he'll just sit there and he'll wait till make eye contact, and then like ding 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 ding, and so you get 1 or 2 responses. But I appreciate that, Hans, that you actually be considerate and say, no, that's not for me.
So the next one I'm going to throw out there, and for everyone who's listening in, if you've got one that you want to share or want us to talk about, throw it in the comments. We'll love to bring it up and appreciate everyone's feedback and chats and comments. I apologize for the people that are watching on Facebook or YouTube. Currently, they don't allow those comments we can't post our comments. So as I'm liking, laughing, replying to your comments, they appear in Haps, which is the platform we're broadcasting from, but you can't see them. So I apologize. We are reading along and loving those as we go, and I'm trying to pop them up and address them as we do. But thinking about this, and now that people are suffering from Zoom fatigue, and we've had all of these, online meetings, and before that, or even you've got the FaceTime. And one of the things that has just, it's kind of that double standard that really annoys me is I do a lot to try and keep everything centered so I don't have to look too far away if I'm looking to type notes, looking something up when I'm on a meeting, or if I'm doing kind of a video call phone to phone. I work really hard to keep it steady so that I'm centered, people can see me, I'm looking at it. But it seems that the people who are waving their phone around, showing the ceiling, setting it down, doing all these crazy things, or looking away and not paying any attention to their computer camera are the most likely to complain about other people looking away or not giving them this perceived eye contact because I'm staring at a blank camera lens, pretending it's the person I'm talking to because I can't look off the screen a little bit and actually look them eye to eye.
Interesting. I've not experienced that. I will say that the people that flip their phone around or are all over the place are the ones that complain about somebody else's mic making noise. Like,
Yep.
I'm sorry, Hans, your mic is making a lot of noise. I'm like, bro, look at you. Your camera is all over the place. I just got vertigo watching your screen. And I'm the number one muter of other people in a conference call. So it is like the best functionality. Whoever designed that is a genius, where I can mute other people. I just serial mute people day to day.
I love that. I love that when you're hosting the meeting, or at least in Teams, you can shut anyone up. I really hate it when someone else is the moderator and they don't know how to shut everyone else up, and you're trapped going, I can see who's making the noise and I can't stop them.
Or when that person says, I think it's Hans making this noise, and it's like, it's clearly you. I'm watching you.
My one downfall in these calls, and it always hits me when it's too late. I'm allergic to dogs, and I have 5. So they are in my office, and when I close my door for noise, if I don't have an air filter running, I get really congested, then I'm sniffling. I apologize if the mics pick that up. Well, the big problem I have is when I'm using my Blue Yeti mic, it is so good that if I'm not talking and I don't mute, it actually starts trying to bump up the volume of the air filter behind me, and suddenly everyone's like, is there a jet engine in your office? What's going on? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'll turn it down, but the microphone's, it's doing it on its own.
Yeah. So if we're going to share tech tips, so in Teams, you can actually turn on noise suppression. And so it uses AI to fill, you can actually run your vacuum cleaner in the background. And if you have it on set on high, then it will filter out all of that noise for you. So I crank mine up to the nth degree. And again, this is one of those other features that I wish Teams would come out with, that you could just turn that on for other people, right? So it's like this one person comes in and they're always, chomping on chips or, whatever it is they're doing. I'm just going to go ahead and turn on noise suppression for them and then only pick up their voice. Perfect. You're on mute right now. So I didn't even do that. My hands are right here. My hands are up. And
so and there's a perfect example. I work really hard, especially like when we're doing a broadcast like this, it's going to be recorded. I really try and put out the best quality product I can. So I turn off the overhead light. I've got the studio lighting going. I've got my Blue Yeti microphone with a foam over it and a windscreen to prevent extra noise. And there's a mute button on the front. And so I hit it, but I've lately noticed I'm not pressing it hard enough. So I hit it. I don't want to look down to see if it's turned on or off because I'll break eye contact. And then I start talking and it's like, I didn't get it. And I just did that again.
Yeah. And I find myself double muted quite often. And that's a good thing. I feel like, we should have gone to, if COVID has changed anything, I feel like it should be the etiquette for virtual conferences, right? So it's, you use the mute button like a walkie-talkie, and so it's just you and I right now. So it's different. If it was Vince, I would mute myself if the three of us were on here because Vince is talking, and then just, unmute. So like, we don't have to say over, but that's pretty much where I feel like it should get to.
Wouldn't that be awesome if on your next team meeting, try this. If you're leading a team meeting, do this as a experiment on video etiquette and say everybody has to say over when they're done speaking. And then see how many people mute and respect each other if they have to say over.
Yeah. And then now this gets me back to like an airplane skit, right? Which is the best. Clarence. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Vaughn pointed out that, it's funny that how insulted people get when they're put on mute. My big reason where I'll slam people on mute is, background noises, like you said, but noisy keyboards. So that's one of the hardest things is I'm trying to type responses to people in the chat here. If I don't hit the mute, my keyboard is so close to the mic, I will drown everybody out, and it'll sound like I'm banging away at the keyboard like a hyperactive monkey, which is also true, but I just don't want people to know that.
you reminded me of a PM that we would have on a project, and we were in a room of 30 people, and we were doing a global project where we had to work with people that were in the UK and in Spain and South America, etc. And so we're in this massive auditorium of BAs that are all over the place in different lines of business. And this woman's typing on her laptop keyboard, and one of the project sponsors walks over to her and goes, why do you hate your keyboard? And it was one of the funniest moments that I think I've seen in a big meeting like that, where she was like typing with such ferocity that it sounded like she was punching every single key. It was the best.
I'm embarrassed to say, I actually filed an HR complaint for harassment against a manager who, I won't say they were out to get me, but they definitely were trying to make my life as difficult as possible, and I wasn't in their chain of command. But I was in a meeting where I was scribe. I was having to take notes, and
Sure.
I'm typing as quietly as I can. And every time I type, they stop everything to call me out that I'm typing too loud and that I'm making too much noise. And I'm like, I'm typing quieter than anyone else here. I'm trying to be as careful as I can. I'm typing in notes for everybody real time. Deal with it. And finally, after too many meetings where I was getting called out and yelled at, I was like, no. I asked you privately a couple times. Hated to do that, but I had to escalate that one.
So do you have a mechanical keyboard?
Yes, I do.
All right. So I knew that was going to be the answer.
Yeah, I do bang a little bit hard on keyboards. I've tried hard. I have actually bought lots of different brands trying to find the quietest ones. The ones that advertise as quiet or silent, I find often aren't any better. I used Gearhead for a while because they had a slimline quiet keyboard that was actually really quiet and loved it. But, with the mute button and the way things are now, it's not as big a issue as it was, 5 or 10 years ago.
Sure. So Vaughn pointed out that apparently when you call AT&T, their automated system makes sounds as if a person's typing after you respond. If it was soft and digital, that might be okay, where it's like, okay, they're giving me the illusion that a person is actually dealing with my problem. I could probably do without it, though.
I love it because we see companies filling in background noise to make it look like their AI is a real person.
Yeah.
And, I've seen even with the Echo devices, the attempt at natural language is getting better. Like I do a daily flash briefing, and now it rotates through a couple phrases. Hey, let me see what's new since the last time you listened. So it's getting better, but it is funny that if there's not a little bit of background noise, you think people have dropped, and that fill-in background noise to make you think that the other side cares. It's good until you get busted.
Sure.
Well, we are hitting the end of our desired time frame, and I really wanted to thank everybody who came out and is watching today. If you are watching the recording, subscribe to the channel, follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of the places where Ekman Guides is broadcast so you can see the topics every week and decide the ones you want to join in. I really want to thank Vince, who came off of a long day at work and his show. He joined as long as he could, but had to hop. So he thanks everyone for joining as well. And I want to turn it over to you for parting thoughts, AJ, as we close out yet another exciting or hopefully entertaining session.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. This was great. And as always, I enjoy your content, and I watch your show every week. So I would include other people and encourage other people to do the same thing.
Well, thank you. And thanks, Steve. It seems long at the beginning, and then suddenly it's over, and I'm looking at the clock going, whoops, we went too late. Really appreciate it. If you have an interest on being on the show to talk about any area, we try and focus on personal, business, and tech, but we're open. We're got some exciting shows that I'm trying to line up in the future, including from one who's a leadership and motivational speaker. Also going to bring back some service management with our friend Valance. We're trying to get him scheduled. And a lot of other wonderful people. We'll also be bringing back people like Amy and Leslie to talk about personal branding and public speaking. AJ is absolutely going to come back. We have a couple great topics and areas that are in his wheelhouse that would be great on a more serious topic. But we wanted to kick this off and have a little fun, especially, we're hitting the end of February, about to have spring, defrosting. So wanted to have a little bit of fun with today's show. Thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on another show. We run these generally every Tuesday and Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern time, whatever time zone the U.S. decides to stick with, and really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.